Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Nicholle Overkamp. Good morning, I should say, for you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming on the show. So, Nicholle, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am a financial planner and business coach. I own a couple of different companies. The first, Wilcox Financial Group, which is a financial planning firm, and How Her House Money Coaching, which is a wealth and business coaching firm specifically for women.
I like that. So you've plenty going on in your life, that's for sure.
I do. I always joke I don't have kids, but I have my businesses, and so it keeps me plenty busy. It's really what I live for.
Is that your thing? Do you like to be always kept flat to the pedal, basically?
Yes, I am
Mm.
dangerous when I am bored. Yeah.
I was talking to someone recently who was saying, I either go to 150% or 50%, and
hmm
someone just said to me, that's just bad math. But yeah, it's sort of like if there's too much time in
Yeah.
hands, that can struggle sometimes.
It's so true. Yeah. It's almost like the more I have going on, the more productive I am, the better I do. And if there's idle time, I tend to do some self-destructive things or I don't know, maybe distracted more, or
Mm.
I don't know exactly the right term, but I try to always be busy. And my husband's the same way. We're always like 120 miles an hour or nothing. So
You can sleep when you die type stuff, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Great. I mean, we were just talking just before we came on there, and you're saying you're a bit of an early riser, right?
I am. Yes. I like to get up around 5 o'clock.
Is that something you've always done, or is it something you've come into really?
Yeah, I've always been an early riser, not always at 5 a.m., but even when I was a kid, like I would be the first person up and annoying all of my friends because they like to sleep in until normal times. And, even in high school, I'd be up at 6 a.m. All right, cool. What are we doing? Who's up? And so now I've learned to keep to myself so I can keep my friends. But yeah, I love the mornings. I love the calm of them. And to me, I feel like if I'm sleeping in too long, I'm missing out on something, whatever that may be. And so it always makes me feel good to get up early, start the day, and have time to myself as well. And we mentioned this a little bit before the interview, but to practice gratitude, to reflect, to mentally plan out my day and strategize. To me, it's so much nicer to wake up, have a plan, be clear and calm versus, waking up when you feel like you have to hit the ground running and you're frazzled and running late. It definitely, I mean, you have a very different day when you start like that. So I try to make a practice of getting up early and being super prepared.
Do you tend to? Sorry, I'm getting into this quicker than I intended, but I
It's
mean,
all good.
do you prepare the night before or anything? Do you have certain routines?
I do. So before I go to bed every night, I check my emails, make sure that there's nothing urgent or that I want to take care of before going to bed. I'm kind of OCD about it. And then I also make sure that I do have everything taken care of the night before if I have an early start to my morning in regard to meetings or anything that needs to happen. So I'll always just do a quick glance at the calendar, check the emails, and then I can sleep easy.
Nice, yeah. It's a good routine. So tell us, what does Fire in the Belly mean to you?
To me, it is definitely passion for what you do, and I'm sure that's an answer you get quite often. And for me, it's like this desire that never goes away to always, like every single day, every part of my day, try to make a positive impact on the lives of people that I'm fortunate enough to interact with, to touch, be it a client or an interaction. And it's so much of my mission, be it personally and at work, is that I'm constantly trying to see who I can help, who I can empower when it comes to money and or business, if it's something in my wheelhouse. And so it's really what gets me out of bed every morning, to be quite honest with you. It's knowing that, like, wow, like I have so much I can accomplish today, and let's not waste it.
I was going to say, I think you've answered the question, but do you, what, your burning desire and your passion, is that something you do every day? Is something you practice?
1000%. Yeah. I'm literally obsessed with what I do, and people think I'm insane, but I can't turn it off. But it doesn't feel like every single day, it doesn't feel like I'm working. It's just part of who I am.
Hmm.
And for me, I almost feel like I miss it when I'm on vacation. And I was explaining this to a friend of mine not too long ago. My husband and I went to Alaska in this last August, and we were gone for 2 weeks, and it was the longest both of us have ever been away. And by like the seventh day, we were like, oh my God, we miss life. Like we miss our routine, we miss work, we miss the hum. And vacation was great, but we were kind of thinking to ourselves, like, I don't think we're ever going to go away for this long again. We're more of the short sprint people, and then back to life. But it was almost like I felt like I was missing. I really truly did. I missed it. And and so it's definitely good to get away and take a break. But I think I learned from that experience, like 7 days is my max, and then that's it. Like I must get back to my purpose, really.
Hmm. No, I like it. Well done. That's
Yeah.
going away is always for entrepreneurs and busy people. It's going away can
Yeah.
be. I personally used to, the first couple of days I would sort of be panicked about going away. I would enjoy 1 or 2 days
Yeah.
in the middle and then enjoy looking forward to getting home halfway through the holiday. So,
Exactly. I know. It's like right before you leave, you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. I really need this. And then you get there and you're like, all right, I'm good. Like,
and then somehow you manage to bank up
yeah.
3 weeks worth of work in the week you're
Right.
off. It's like, how does that
Oh,
happen?
I know. Right. Only if I could be that productive all the time, right?
No, cool, cool.
Yeah.
So take us back. So where are you from originally? Talk to us about your background.
Sure. So I actually grew up in Williamsville, New York, which is this little suburb in Buffalo, and I've pretty much stayed here my whole entire life. I still live in Williamsville. I had this little 1 year stint where I lived in the city of Buffalo, but it was literally just 1 year, and then I've always lived in Williamsville. Not very exciting. I didn't go anywhere. I was never one of those people who was wishing my way out of where I grew up from, probably because I'm a creature of habit and comfort. uh, and my family's around here, and I met my husband, and he's also grown up in Williamsville. Pretty much always lived in Williamsville, and his family's around here. And to us, we love being able to walk to our parents' house, or being able to check in on grandma and grandpa, or have our nephews ride their bikes over. And my best friend lives around the block. It's like, to me, it's so much of what brings me joy, that I love that neighborhood feeling, and knowing that everybody that I love and care about is within 1 or 2 miles. So we're probably going to be here for a long time.
I think you should just go from there because it sounds like you're here
Yeah,
for life.
yeah, exactly. We like to travel, for sure, short periods of time, of course, but
Hmm.
I like to explore other things. But I really truly love living here. It's just such a great place. So.
Oh well. So tell me, as a kid, if we met you, I don't know, 7 years old, what would we have met?
You would have met a girl in like Jenko jeans, trying to be a boy, outside playing all the time, with the guys. When I was a kid, I was the biggest tomboy you would ever meet, and you could not get me to come inside. Like, always outside, into sports, always riding my bike, playing night games when, neighborhood kids used to actually do that. Manhunt, hide and seek, all the fan favorites. Yeah. And so I was always extremely active, and my poor mother was probably always like trying to chase me down and fix my scrapes and bruises. But and I really haven't changed much, aside from the whole, tomboy part. I do wear dresses now, but if I'm not working, I'm outside,
Hmm.
and doing anything that I can that is active. So
I was going to say, is it the
yeah.
active side or is it the nature side or what is it that gets it, does it for you?
Both. For me, my mind is clear when I'm moving my body. And so even if I have conference calls with clients or if I'm on a coaching call, if I can be walking while coaching, it's such a better experience for both of us. I really enjoy that. And then for me too, being in nature is just like the equivalent of my therapy. It's like being at peace. And so anytime that I can get out and hike or be on the water, my husband and I have a couple of boats, and we're very much into boating. And so anytime that we can be outdoors, but then be in nature, for us, it's really just a huge part of our soul and serenity, and in trying to find peace with life.
Fast boat or slow boat?
Oh, well, both. So he's very much into boat racing.
Okay.
And so we had a race boat that we did a bunch of the poker runs with. If I don't know if you're familiar
Mm-hmm.
with those, but
Well,
and then we got rid of that boat, and now we are in the market for one currently right now. So we just have our slow, fun leisure boat right now, but he's got an itch to get another one. So we're in the middle of compromises about that.
I love it. So yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
the water's there for you, and it's getting out
Mhm.
and getting moving and all that.
Yeah.
So wow. So I mean,
Yeah.
was it sports and team sports and stuff as a kid, or was it mainly just getting out and just being it yourself?
Both. I started playing softball when I don't even know, maybe 6. Like how old can you start t-ball? Like I'm pretty sure my mom got me into it is literally as soon as I could, because she didn't know what else to do with me. And so I started playing softball. I dabbled in soccer a little bit, didn't really love it. Like softball was definitely like my thing. And I did that all the way through college, actually. And so I stopped playing in college because I had to work too much. I had to keep 2 or 3 jobs throughout to put me through college. But I definitely played through middle school, high school, you name it. Yeah.
Competitive?
Yes, I am a competitive person. I can't help it. I'm not the friend you want to call for game night.
Yeah, not unless you want to lose. It's like yeah.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's like my husband is the same way. We're both kind of crazy when it comes to that, and we try so hard to just like have fun, but if there's something to win, we're winning it.
It's like I was gonna say, if you guys ever fall out, I'm sure it's monumental. It's like
It's pretty epic, yeah.
great. It's a great way to be. It's like yeah, full flat out. Love it.
For sure. And it's short. It's like a big explosion, and then we come back and we're like, okay, that felt really good. We can move on now.
Love it. Love it. So tell me, as a young person, what were you gonna be? What was the plan?
Well, my plan, actually, I always wanted to be a lawyer, and this is super funny, but I watched the movie Legally Blonde with Reese Witherspoon when I was a kid, and ever since I saw that movie, I was like, that's gonna be me. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong, and I want to be a lawyer. And so I kind of got obsessed with the idea of being a lawyer. And then when I was in middle school, my parents got divorced, and I became a product of going through my parents got divorced. I was like the only kid in middle school who I felt like who had divorced parents and who was dealing with this. And then my dad disappeared, and I didn't see him. I actually didn't really see him or have a relationship with him until I was in college. And it slowly started. Like, it wasn't an immediate like, hey dad, I love you. I had like some stuffed deep crap that I was dealing with. And so but with that said, as I was in high school and kind of started to narrow in on, all right, who am I going to be, what do I want to do, I ended up doing, in my senior year, they had this like program where you could do the whole criminal justice program and at a college. And so I spent half of my senior year in college in a criminal justice program. program and kind of sampling out. And so what I thought I had wanted to do was actually be a family attorney. So working in the family court system. And, I was in between like social worker, attorney, not really sure. And so in college, my full 4 years, that was kind of the track I was on. I was in psychology, social work, criminal justice, and then I had started the internship process, and I realized that maybe it wasn't for me. I kept falling asleep in the courtroom. I'm not a very good reader. I have ADHD, which probably doesn't come as a shock to anybody listening after you've heard a little bit. And then the more I learned, I was like, oh my gosh, another 3 years of school, all of this reading, all this, I loved research, but like the whole sit still, read thing and hours in court, like all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like, I don't think I can do this. I don't know if it's for me. I had a couple not so great internship experiences as well in terms of just realizing the weight and the burden that family court can have on you, as well as the social work side, because I was going to approach my master's with a dual degree. And so what I ended up learning is and I stumbled on, I was at the time, and when I was finishing up undergrad, I finished undergrad in 3 years. I was working for a financial advisor part-time, and he was very much like a grandfather figure. And we had this conversation. I got my acceptance into the master's program for MSWJD, and I was, it was like, part of me was excited. I'm like, oh my God, I can actually do this. Nobody in my family has even gone through college, let alone like a master's. And like, part of me was super proud. And the other part of me was like, oh shit, this just got real. And do I want to do this? Like, I don't know if I even like this. And so I ended up having this conversation with the advisor that I was working for at the time. And he's like, Nicholle, like, how are you going to even pay for the master's program? And when you graduate, the salaries are only starting at 50, 60,000. Like, how are you going to keep a roof over your head and pay your student loans? And because he knew my circumstance, and I was very much and had been supporting myself for a while. And so we got to talking about what I liked, and what was completely evident is that I was obsessed with helping people. I loved making an impact. And I liked fast-paced, rapid change. I loved the constant ability to always be learning, albeit both career paths would give me that. What I realized is I loved also like the business side of it, the number side of it, versus what I had found with the whole MSW program and social work and family law, was that it was just a little too much emotion for me, that I didn't have the ability to separate at home. I would take everything home with me, and it would keep me up at night, and I just couldn't separate the two. And so long story short, he essentially talked me into being a financial advisor. And I was impressionable, and at the time, I was 21. I'm like, sure, let's give it a whirl. And I said, this sounds great. And so that's like literally exactly what I did. I think the next week they hired me as an advisor, and I ended up getting my licenses. And at that time, I enrolled in the MBA program with a concentration in finance. And literally the only reason I did that is, for some reason in my mind, in our generation, like, you had to get a master's or you are a nobody. And so it was more of the, well, I have to do this because everybody's doing it, jump on the bandwagon kind of thing. So I got my MBA while I was, getting licensed within that year. And then that's literally all she wrote. Like, I started practicing and getting a healthy dose of what real life is. And I just completely fell in love with the industry. It took me a while to find my footing, and in terms of where I wanted to specialize and what I wanted to do. But as a whole, it was like something that never bored me. Like I knew that I could never, there's always something to get better at. There was always something to learn, and there were always people to help. And for me, that was like, oh my gosh, like this is the dream, and being able to do all of those things in an environment that just like constantly forced me to level up.
It's amazing, like, the drive that you had there, even like I say, even the sort of the false start, if you like, or the sort of detour, let's call it. But you were flat to the mat. You were sort of pushing on for that, and but what sort of gave you that push? I mean, I know it was maybe sort of slightly off track at the time, but it was still,
Yeah.
you were full throttle for it regardless.
I think for me it was, I like ever since I was young, I wanted to make sure I didn't end up like my family, that I didn't end up like my mom. And not that my mom was bad. I mean, she was amazing. She raised my sister and I, single mom, never went to school, working minimum wage. Like, there's nothing wrong with what she did. She did the best she could with what she had. But in seeing her struggle, in seeing her always needing to depend on other people to support us, to help her through the journey of raising us, it was always very evident and clear that like, wow, you know what, money's pretty important, and I better know how to make it. And I better know how to manage my own life, because I want to be independent. I don't want to depend on anybody else. And I think part of it came from like a deep down resentment for with my dad as well. And thinking like, well, shit, like a man's not a plan. And I want to educate myself and really make sure that I'm never in a position when I grow up that I need someone other than me. And so for me, it was like working my way out of my environment, and part of it too was I had no choice. Like I needed to pay rent, I needed to pay for my car, and I grew up in a neighborhood that was like a upper middle class suburban neighborhood. And so I saw all of my friends, families have the easy, if you would, life. And so part of me like desired that, like, and saw what they had. And I'm like, well, how can I make that happen? And so it was that drive to know that I can be anything I want. I just have to work for it. And I was a slow learner. Like, I definitely, it took me a while to get to where I am, because I had huge confidence issues. But at the end of the day, it was like 1000% not wanting to relive what my mom and my whole family truly like went through. Like every single one of them just never worked their way out of their circumstance. And so I made it my personal mission to not be that.
Would you say, I mean, not, it sounds a bit like a preservation or a
Yeah.
self-defense mechanism that sort of almost kicked in. Is that fair to say?
Probably. Yeah, it totally is. I think for me, anytime that I get uncomfortable, I make it like my little personal mission to make it work and figure it out. Whatever the circumstance, I tend to thrive under pressure. And I'm a figure it out kind of person. I'm not someone that likes to be told no. Or you can't. I'll typically do whatever it takes. So
Because yeah, some people are, set the building on fire and then we'll talk about it. It's like,
yeah,
yeah.
kind of, jump off the cliff. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Does that, I mean, you mentioned their ADHD a while back. Is that something you've been conscious of a while, or talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've known since actually since college. So I knew I always had trouble focusing, but never knew what was wrong with me or that anything was wrong with me in the first place. And then it was diagnosed in college by a psychologist, because I just was like, why can't I focus? What's wrong with me? Why is everybody else able to sit here for 2 hours and read a book, and I have to be on a treadmill and reading a book? Like it was, and so I had always had my ways, like, and even when I was in school, my methods would be stationary bike while reading, or flashcards, go for a run, flashcards. You know, my neighbors probably thought I was insane. And so, but be it as it may, I had always come up with these like mechanisms to try to handle what it was that I needed. And anytime I could ever get something on audio, that was like gold for me. I'm such an auditory learner, and to be able to do that really helped. And it didn't come through until really my MBA program, actually, because that wasn't even a thing in college, you know, having any like podcasts or books on CD even, you know, it wasn't until my MBA program when it was like probably one of the first online programs ever. But yeah, so I just tried to figure it out. And then I don't like medication. I'm very much against it. And so I still, you know, once in a while, if I need to, you know, I will, if it's like a really heavy week or something like that. But I really try my best to just kind of find ways to figure it out and work within my capacity, because for me too, it's where a lot of like my creative comes from and my energy, and I've done a really good job of surrounding myself with people who have strengths that I don't, you know. And for example, you know, my business partner Sarah, she is like the yin to my yang, and it's so great because she's focused, she's diligent, she's organized, and she's constantly like reining me in, which is really great because I need that. But part of what I do is like the vision and the new ideas and the development of everything. And so we work really well together. And I have a good way of doing, like, surrounding myself with people that are just good compliments or support. You know, I'm very aware of my shortcomings. And so I think that's a strength in terms of recognizing that I have like nothing to hide. I don't have an issue with, you know, my pride or anything like that. Like, I just know like there's shit that I'm bad at and there's stuff that I'm really good at. And for all the stuff that I'm bad at, like, I'm totally comfortable in myself and saying, hey, like, these are the things that I need help with. So who can help, you know?
Were you fortunate enough to get dyslexia to come with the ADHD, or did you not get that?
No, fortunately, I did not. So, you know, I know you mentioned having that. And so I can only imagine an added layer of complexity there with learning.
But it's interesting because I know, I mean, even, you know, it's interesting. You've learned how you learn. So
Yeah.
mainly
Yep.
auditory, which I get a lot. You know, it's kind of going,
Mm-hmm.
you want to learn something, tell me. And
Mm-hmm.
but your
Exactly.
language is very mixed. You know, you're kind of kinesthetic and auditory language there as well, which is kind of unusual. Don't know if you ever show a bias, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
No, it's amazing. So take us back then. So through school, I mean, how, you know, as you call it, middle school. So through, you know, middle school, what, again, were you heading the books, or were you sort of get me out of here type stuff?
No, I hated studying, and I was lucky that like, so I would be the kid that actually listened in class, and I didn't really study. You know, I listened in class, I paid attention, I kind of studied, but for the most part, I did well just listening. And then if it was a big test that I was like kind of confused on, I asked for help a lot. And so I would always, you know, be the person staying after class, hey, explain this to me, or I need more help here, or finding ways where the teacher could actually verbally tell me. And then if it was something that I knew I needed extra help with or extra studying, I would do the flashcards actually. And so I would make flashcards, and then I would have my mom or a friend do it with me, so that way they could tell me the answer if I didn't know it. And I was always hearing something while I was studying. So I would like, and for me, like, writing it down helped a lot as well. So I would like write it down, give the flashcard, and we had this little system that I used all throughout school, and it worked really well for me.
Just explain to anyone that's not used to the sort of the flashcard principle, if you would.
Yeah. Oh, so there are these little index cards, and you can get them in any size, but what I would do is, for example, if there was an exam and there was a definition on one side and then the topic on the other side. And so the question essentially would be on one side and the definition on the other. So that way I could quiz myself, or somebody else could quiz me and say, hey, what's the answer to X on the one side, and then on, you know, you flip it over and that would be the answer. And so I would write them all out. And so part of the exercise in me learning was actually rewriting. But then when I had, you know, asked for someone to help, then hearing them say the answer if I didn't know it too, or explaining it in a different way was super helpful for me.
Cool. No, thank you for that. Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
like I say,
Yeah,
some people
sure.
will be used to the flashcard concept, some may not.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know, would you be able to visualize that card back, or was it the listening part? So it's almost like
It's
a,
both. Yeah.
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 You know, it's
Yeah,
always
if I
interesting.
see things too, it's, yeah, if I see things, like I can very, if I see things and hear it, it's like in my brain forever. Yeah.
Okay. So if you know, saying if you want me to learn something, show me. Is that
Hmm.
a fair
But
principle?
and talk to me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
really practical. That's great. Because
Hmm.
I know nowadays, you know, the systems and colleges seem to be switching on a lot more to, you know, different methods of learning as opposed to
Yeah.
just keep,
Yeah.
you know, we'll just keep shouting or tell you to read this, and it may or may not work. But no, that's cool. So yeah, so through college and what, lawyer, you know, legally blonde. Where else had you lawyers in the family? Is there any
Nope.
connection? Or
No
just
connection. Like literally my family, you know, my mom didn't go to college. My dad was a carpenter. I don't even know if he went to college, maybe like 1 year, 2 years for the trades. And nobody else like at the time was, you know, in my family had done the whole college thing, especially wasn't a lawyer. You know, but the running joke with my friends is like, my dad still doesn't know what I do. Like kind of, but not really. And so you know, it was really like, as silly as it may be, that movie. And then like I would always just watch things and see. I had a friend in high school, her parents were attorneys, and you know, I'd always hear like stories and court cases, and like it was just always intriguing to me. I'm a story person. And so if it, you know, if there's a job that comes along with a story or anything like that, like I'm going to tune in and be like, ooh, like tell me more. And so that's really where it came from. Like there wasn't like a big genius behind it, or a ton of research for that matter, like, or guidance. I mean,
mm,
literally, I did that like little aptitudes test in high school of like what you should be when you grow up, and it was like firefighter for me. And I'm like, I don't want to fight fires. I think that's great, but so that didn't help me any. And you know, the guidance counselors at the time, I mean, there was just zero guidance. I mean, truly, what, you know, when I was in high school. And so it was literally like, nah, well, that sounds like one of the major like job categories. I think I'll do that one. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I don't think too many people have, you know, I think possibly in the sort of generation gone by, let's put it that way, but
yeah,
guidance counselors kind of, or the computer system, they seem to go through and it's like, yeah, you should be a gardener. It's like, no, I really don't like
I
gardens,
know.
or
Yeah.
so I don't quite know how it was all programmed back then, but it's just different. But how would you have guided you as a younger person?
How, I'm sorry, what?
How would you have guided yourself? You know, if you were sort of had you as a student or as a
Hmm.
mentee back then, you know, what could you or would you have done? Do you know?
That's a great question. I'm not really sure. I think, you know, it would have just been nice to have someone teaching me the things. And so, you know, teaching me about money, teaching me about financial aid, and that there's more aid available, and that there's scholarships available, and asking me the questions like, hey, Nicholle, what do you actually enjoy doing? What are you good at? You know, or someone telling me that I actually could be good at something for that matter. You know, and so there was really, I never had a mentor or someone that I could look up to. And so it was, you know, my life, you know, for in the early parts of it was very much the blind leading the blind. And so it was, you know, it would have been really nice to just have that person, you know, that guidance in terms of just navigating through like normal stuff that you go through as an adolescent, and that you go through in terms of trying to find your place in the world. And you know, I probably could have found my footing a little bit quicker if I, you know, if I had that that person, you know, in my life, and asking, even through like when I got started as a financial advisor, like I wish when I got started there would have been a mentor that had my best interest in mind, versus, you know, using me, if you will, that could have told me just like unbiased, real things, real facts. And it would have been nice to have a female in that role. And I didn't have a female mentor until like 4 years ago. You know, and I've been practicing for over 10 years. And so yeah, I mean, that truly would have been super nice. And I think that's part of too why, you know, I so want to help women and be that role for other women, because I didn't have it, and I know the impact it can have. Path or trajectory if you believe in yourself. And so you know, that's definitely a role of what I play now, but a part of why, you know, why I do what I do, because I don't want other women or young women professionals to like go through some of the crap that I had to go through, and with, you know, just like constantly like learning, stumbling with, you know, zero guidance. And so there's tons of value in failing, but shoot, like if I could have had a shortcut or two, that would have been really nice.
Take us back. I mean, you mentioned there your parents divorced then and through
Yeah.
middle school.
Yeah.
What age were you in, and was this expected, or how did that come across for you?
You know, it was expected. I think all they did was fight. Like I remember hiding in my bedroom with my little sister, and we had this like little fort we made in our closet. We would always just like try to tune it out. And so I think it was, you know, but when you're that young, you know, your parents fight, but you don't really know what that means in the grand scheme of life. And so no doubt, like when they said they were splitting, I was devastated. Like, you know, and as a little girl, like even though my dad wasn't around a lot, I still idolized him because he was my dad, you know, and if he was working with his tools, I wanted to work with his tools, and I wanted to always like try to make him proud. And, you know, and so it was like definitely a lot of, you know, it was shock and awe. And then I went through like the normal, what am I going to do? You know, what can I control? There's nothing I can control in my life. And so there was like a little period of time where I, you know, got super specific about what I would eat. And I was really difficult. And I, you know, refused to eat any like meat, and then I didn't eat cheese. And like, I cut out all these things, like, and I did it because I could control it. And it like pissed off my mom. So it's like, you know, and so yeah, I went through like these little things that was like just self coping, because I was in sixth grade, like I didn't know. And so yeah, and then my, you know, my dad kind of, you know, he wasn't around, and then when I thought he was going to be around, he wasn't. And so, you know, you go through those like little disappointments, and I think it makes you a little bit hard in a sense too, where you're like, hey, you know what, I've never been able to count on him or people in my life. And so I always was, you know, I think that's where it like kind of it planted the seed, like, okay, I've got my own back, and I'm going to make life happen, whatever, you know, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm. No, it's amazing, and it's becoming, I think, more common, unfortunately, you know, and it's amazing how different people, you know, what they take away from that
Yeah.
event,
Yeah.
you know. So you mentioned you've a sister,
I do. Yes. A younger sister.
younger.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're the wise one then.
Well, she's the talented one. We're, you know, it's funny, we couldn't be more opposite. She's like, I'm type A, numbers. I love being busy all the time, you know, very, just we're different. And she's like what a type C, if you will. She's, you know, but extremely talented. Like she's an artist, she's a designer, and just like floats through life, you know, in this like happy, glorious mentality. And so it's definitely hilarious how how different we are. She got my dad's talent, you know. She's very much like a hands-on person, and
Mm.
my mom too. Like she used to like to paint when we were kids, and so she took that on, and I don't have one lick of artist anything in my body, you know. And I actually hate it. I think it's too like cumbersome and it takes too much time. I don't have the patience for being creative or artistic. And so, we're, we're definitely very different in that sense, but she is, we were pretty close. We weren't always close because we were so different, but as we've gotten older, we've gotten a lot closer, and she just had a baby 9 months ago. And that definitely, I'm obsessed with that little guy. Like, he's just the cutest thing ever. And so now we see each other quite a bit more as well. So it's nice.
That's cool. I mean, you say,
Yeah.
the art's not there, but I mean, you dress with style, you're wearing sort of costume jewelry, it's there's funky stuff going on there, but you're sort of,
Yeah.
it's not for you though, it seems.
No, I mean, yes, I definitely love, fashion. I have my own style though, it's not mainstream, but I guess that's where I can be creative.
Mm. No, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
But just out of interest, I mean, what is your creative process?
No, I don't really know that I have much of a creative process. Like, I think for me, anytime that I need to think or get new ideas, I go for a walk or a run or a hike for that matter. Any one of those things are where my best ideas come from. And so if I'm at like gridlock in terms of coming up with content or new ideas, I'll toss in an audiobook or a podcast and go for a walk or run or whatever I can do at that time. And usually that's where all my good ideas come from. And so even when we were writing our book, we wrote a book a couple of years ago. And when I was writing the draft for that, I literally wrote the entire outline while I was walking. I had the Otter app so I could transcribe. So I talked into my phone while it wrote, sent me a Word doc. And so I'd go for like these crazy long walks and just say everything. And then when I got back to my computer, I could go through the transcription and scrub it up and make it into decipherable English. And so, but it's how my brain works well is when I'm in motion.
I think because again, it's interesting how people see. So some people will.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, my notes are like crazy. It's like
Yeah.
you have all these static whiteboard sheets on the wall, and
Yeah.
if I want to think, I want to do anything else, I've got to get up and I've got to be moving, and
Yeah.
big markers, big sort of spider diagrams, and all crazy stuff
Yep.
going on. Whereas my wife is the exact opposite. She's like, structure, lines,
Mm-hmm.
sentences, all the rest.
Yeah.
It's like. No, that's
lines. Who needs
yeah.
lines? Yeah.
Yeah, lines are for crazy people. Let's move on.
Yeah.
So, 21, you're heading into the world of finance. You've sort of change of career as such, and where did you go? You're straight in, and you're finding, trying to find your feet really.
Yeah, I did. So where I started, it was a pretty big company, and the expectations were extraordinary. And so the one good part about it is that they did have really great training. And so there was training and education every single day. But the expectation was that you were there from 8 to 8. And because I was female and young, the expectation of me was that I was just going to fail. And so I would get there at 6:30 or 7 and stay until 10 p.m. And I did that 5 days a week. And then I was there Saturday mornings, and then I was there Sunday nights, literally. For the first couple of years, like, I lived at that office because, again, I think it was the hearing, I'll never forget it. I was always there because I also couldn't afford internet at my apartment at the time when I first started. And so I was finishing up my MBA program at work because they had internet. And so I would stay, some nights like 8 to 10 or 8 to 11 or whatever, like doing my MBA program at the desk there. And so, and thankfully, eventually we got internet at the apartment. But with that being said, I heard all the conversations, because a lot of the time, like, the guys didn't know I was there. And I'll never forget, my manager at the time had a conversation with the president. They call themselves like SVP of the company, whatever. It was just a title, but he ran the place, and then my direct manager, and they were having a conversation like, hey, it was along the lines of like, how much time do you give her before she drops out? And they essentially made a bet on me failing. And so that was like my fuel right there. I was like, oh no, like, nobody is choosing how I succeed other than me. And so I made it my personal mission, at a great cost, to do well. And so I was in the grind. I mean, I definitely, part of me, I don't take it back, because it's part of what shaped me, and what gave me, I think, the work ethic and the drive that I have today. I don't think I could ever do it again. Thank God I was young, because I didn't sleep. I lived off of like Red Bulls and coffee, and was super unhealthy. But I did well. I did well, and I learned a lot. But it was at the cost of losing a lot of friends. It was at the cost of ruining a relationship with my high school sweetheart that I had, through high school, throughout college, and so I think there was like almost 2 years, like, I didn't go out, I didn't drink, I didn't do anything. Like, I literally just worked. And so, so it was one of those things where I literally put my eye on the prize, and was like, that I blacked out everything else. And then, I started to emerge in my third year, and like kind of do more things. But then I was like extreme, right? Work hard, party hard. There was like nothing in between, and still didn't sleep. And so, it wasn't until I was, maybe 3.5 years in, I can't remember, but I started, as I was working, it was a pretty toxic environment, in terms of like the old boys club, and they were big into partying, and their values were definitely not aligned with mine, but I didn't know any better at the time either. I was like, oh, this is just what people do. And so, but as I learned more about the industry, and I did find friends outside of the industry that worked for themselves as independent advisors, or from different firms, I was like, oh, this isn't the way it has to be. This isn't what you have to do. And it was very heavy sales, product sales. And as I learned more and got more educated, I wanted to do more planning. I wanted to do actual fee-based financial planning, and putting plans together without like having to hit a sales quota. And so, it just kind of came to a head at a point, and I said, this isn't for me. I don't really know what is. And there were a ton of things that kind of snowballed into that, but I did a very hasty, immature, I got in an argument with a manager because I found out some stuff. Then I like just resigned on the spot, and I was like, that's it. And, and they were like, come back tomorrow. It's fine. Get all your client files, but you have to leave now. And I was like, okay. So I left. And, that was funny, because obviously they were never giving me the keys again to go back inside the office. And so like, it was like vultures to my client files. But, and then I realized, I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. I was really hurt by a lot of things that had happened. And I found out that there, the people, when I had worked there, the guys I worked with, like, I thought they were like my family, like we were besties, and we weren't. Like, they were very much just in it for the money. And there was a lot that was going on behind my back that I found out about. And I was like, just really devastated and heartbroken, because I was so young and naive that like, I thought the world thought the way I thought. Why would anybody think differently? Why would anybody do things that were hurtful, or like not forthright? And so I learned like tremendous life lessons. And so I ended up like taking maybe a week, and just saying like, wow, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to stay in the industry? And I had a couple clients reach out to me. They had my cell phone number, and they literally were like, Nicholle, you have to stay in the business because you're the only person I trust. I love working with you so much. Like, please tell me when you find a new home, I'll follow you. And I had a few of those people reach out, and like, that was like, okay, you know what? Like, man up, Nicholle. like, so what? Like, this happened, it sucks, but you can do better. And so I interviewed with like a gazillion different places. I pretty much had my choosing as to where I wanted to go. So, and then I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to build my own brand. I ended up going with a broker dealer that supported me, and the individual who ran it was like he was just the most supportive, incredible human ever, and we shared all the same values. And so that's what happened. You know, I decided, okay, like, this is where I'm going to go, and I'm going to build my own brand and do my own thing. I'm going to focus on planning, and I'm not going to worry about a sales quota, and I'm going to do things differently. And for anybody that doesn't like it, tough, right? And so that's what I did. And it took like a lot of hard lessons, again, because it was one of those, hey, I'm really good at my craft, I must be a good business owner, all right? And that was a rude wake up call. So I was 25, just turned 26, and I had to learn about, you can be really good at what you do, but it doesn't mean you can run a business. And so I sucked at running a business. And so I had to learn about messaging, branding, finding a target market, like all the things, right? I mean, I was just like squandering like a train wreck for a couple of years. And so, and with that time, I actually found Sarah, who is my partner now, and we teamed up, and she started as my assistant because I was literally like drowning, and I was like, help me with these things. I'm not exactly sure what I need help with, but like, can you just organize, you know? And so she started with that, and the, you know, the relationship evolved from there. But it's funny, you know, I think if I would have known what I was getting myself into, I would have never done it. And so I think it was so good at the time that I was young, I still had all the energy in the world to like work around the clock. But you know, at the same point, it was like, you know, the beauty of being naive was that I didn't have time to be afraid of what I didn't know. And so it was really cool looking back now, of course, hindsight, you know, and thinking like, holy shit, like that was the perfect storm for everything that happened. And at the time I thought it was like the worst thing ever. And you know, and now like I'm so glad it unfolded that way. I'm so glad I went through that pain and everything that I experienced, because I would have never done the hard things. You know, I think as human beings, we're so inclined to just do what's easy versus forcing ourselves to get uncomfortable until there's like that big, huge, fat catalyst. And sometimes it's the catalyst we can't control. You know, and so for me, that's what happened. And you know, be it as it may, it was a challenge, and I learned some hard lessons, but I have zero regrets. You know, I have zero regrets, you know, aside from I should have asked for help sooner because I'd be further ahead right now. But you know, you can't change the past, and you just learn from it and grow from there.
In those early years, would you say you'd something to prove?
Oh yeah, I absolutely thought I had something to prove. I had to prove it to the world that I was like the best and I could do this and I was tough, and nobody could, you know, nobody could tell me that I couldn't work 12 hours a day. And, you know, there was my competitive spirit, like nobody's going to work harder than me. And nobody did. I mean, I proved that, that's for sure. Not that that was necessarily the best thing to do, but I did it. And that's what I was praised for, right? Like I got all of the awards. I got the #1, you know, associate of that year for every single year that I was there, top performer. But again, like my sister didn't even know who I was when I worked there, you know, like she literally, and neither did my family. Like I was a jerk. Like I was a laser focused jerk. But that's, you know, that's what I thought it took, you know, and to some degree it is what it took to do what I did there. But, you know, I probably, if I would have known better, I would have done better, you know.
Again, how, you know, if you were able to have mentored yourself at that point,
Yeah.
what would you be saying then?
Like take a minute. Take a minute, you know, and remember that your life is short, you know, and at any instance you can, it can be just ripped away from you. And even though I was, you know, climbing the corporate ladder, if you will, and doing well there, like there were so many things that I missed out on. Like I didn't even take a vacation, like a real vacation that wasn't paid for by work, until I met my husband. You know, I just never stopped. I never stopped. And those are years that you can't get back, but I try to make up for them now. And so I think, and even when I mentor young women now, it's like self-care is such a thing that I talk about, because I did get burnt out. And like, if you can avoid burnout, you can be way more productive. If you take breaks, you're more productive. Like, I think back how many days I was at the office, but I was like fake working, not really working, because I was just tired. And if I would have like accepted the fact that I needed sleep or a break, I would have been more productive. But nobody was telling me that was a thing, when I didn't even know what the self-care meant. Like when I left, I was like extremely underweight. I had an ulcer. My hair was falling out. And I was like, I think it was like just turning 26. Like, I left in May, and that August I turned 26, and it was like, holy crap, like that is not what you want to be, but I thought it was. I thought that's what success was. You work hard, you show up, you don't do anything for yourself, and that means you're successful. And that was a lot of BS. Yeah.
Was that ego or pleaser gene, or what? Do you know what was sort of stirring that fire up?
I think it was mostly people pleaser. It was mostly people pleaser because I was terrified, and for quite some time. And I mean, I actually really just started to deal with this maybe a few years ago, is that I was always the person who never wanted anybody to be mad at me. Never. I did everything I could in my power to like make people like me. I wanted them to think like, oh my gosh, she can do it, and we do like her, and we do want her part of our team. And I wanted to be accepted. Like I wanted to be part of something. And I did it at the expense of other relationships. I did it at the expense of my health. But again, like I didn't know any better or different. Like I just thought that's what people did. I had nothing to compare it to. I never worked at a place before that either. I mean, before that, I was a waitress and a bartender, and I had internships. Like I didn't work in a corporate environment. I didn't know it was inappropriate for like some of the things they were having me do, or the questions they asked on the first interview. And this is the craziest thing, looking back on the interview, they asked me, do you plan on having kids? And like obviously that's like not allowed, right? You can't ask a woman that. And I wore it with a badge of honor. I never want kids, I just want to work. And like I knew that's what they wanted to hear, right? So I knew intuitively that's what they wanted to hear, so I said it. But then to wear it with a badge of honor, and like saying that versus realizing how wrong it was, is just like, it speaks to the point of just like, you idiot, right? Like how could you do that? And but you don't know what you don't know. And I just had like legitimately zero experience with life at all. So
Do you think, I'm just curious, do you think the pleaser side came from your parents' divorce? Do you think there's a correlation?
probably, sure. Yeah, I think, I was always trying to I don't know. I know growing up, like I was always trying to like impress my dad so that he would like show up to stuff, because he never showed up to stuff. And so that was always there. I did have a strong father figure in my life though. But it wasn't, it was my mom's very long-term boyfriend, and he was actually like my dad, but it's weird. Like he was super supportive, an amazing person. Like couldn't be more grateful, but it's not your dad. And so like there was always that like part of me that like wanted to prove like, hey, I'm successful and you should be proud of me. And I don't know where else it could have really come from. Maybe even my mom. Like we had a very turbulent relationship growing up, because I was a jerk. I was a teenager jerk, and all the like things I had going on inside of me, I took out on her. Like, you make a rule for me, I hate you, right? Like just typical. But with that said, I think there was a part of me too who also wanted to just prove to her, hey, I may have done like bad things when I was a kid, or got caught drinking, but I'm going to prove to you that no matter what I do, I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to be able to take care of myself, and I don't need you, kind of like chip on my shoulder, right?
Sure.
So and I don't know, like I think just for me it's always like I just want to make other people proud, and ultimately too, like I wanted to help, like and even when I was working there in the earlier years, like I wanted to help my sister. I wanted to help her pay for school. I wanted, and she didn't of course accept it, but and I just wanted to be able to be in a position that if my family needed something, like I could be the one that they could ask for that. Like I wanted to provide that kind of stability that I think, I didn't feel I had. Like I knew that if I needed money, like I couldn't ask my parents, like they didn't have it. And I didn't want them to struggle for me, and so I wanted to kind of be able to provide that too for them.
No, it's interesting, and again, the different drivers
Mm,
and
yeah.
what comes on. Because I mean, I suppose knowing that you had yourself to rely on, so if you
Hmm.
wanted money, you had to make the money. There was no sort of plan B or whatever. It
Right.
was kind of going right. You've got to do this, and it's again swimming uphill in the corporate world. Is it, hopefully it's changed
Yeah.
in terms of, as you say, the inappropriate interviews and working different times and things like that, and like I say, I hope it's changed. But so it's amazing. So you came through that stage, 25, 26, and you're kind of going, right, you've worked your socks off, and you're going, right,
Hmm.
set the
Yeah.
building on fire and leave. It's like, right, I'm done with you guys, and
Yeah.
all the
It's
games that
not
go
my
on.
proudest moment. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's amazing what happens. But
Yeah.
so you're then setting up by yourself, and you're saying it took a couple of years for you to find your pace and find your flow there, right?
It did. Yeah, totally. I was like, I didn't really, I was like, okay, I want to do this, but my vision wasn't that clear. I was still trying to be everything to everyone, doing all the things. I was partnering with other advisors, just trying to I literally was grabbing at everything, because I just didn't know what would work. And so it did. It took me a few years, um doing everything to kind of think like, all right, like I'm doing okay, but is okay good enough, and then I was working with a couple senior advisors that I was doing quite a bit of traveling and working on family business succession planning stuff, and it was like good work, but it wasn't all my own. And but it was good. It was always good enough, right? I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I'm making it, whatever. And then in a few years ago, it'll be 4 years actually this August, my husband and I were in a boating accident, race boat, right? And so what happened was we crashed, and it was like a freak accident, perfect storm. By some act of God, we both survived, because in the kind of boat that we had, 99% of those crashes, you die like on scene, right? We were going like 120 miles an hour, and flipped. And so I was unharmed. Who knows how on earth that happened? I was unharmed. My husband was not. He was severely injured, broke a bunch of bones, traumatic brain injury, coma. It took him years to recover. But with that said, that moment in time, in that almost 4 years ago now, forced me to hire a business coach, because I was like, holy shit, I can't travel anymore. I can't do a lot of the things that I was doing, and I need to get laser focused, and I need to learn how to make more money, because I can't count on, at the time I was told I'm not going to be able to count on my husband. I'm going to have to take care of him. I'm going to have to get long-term care. Like they were literally giving me the worst case scenario if he survived. And so I was like, oh my God, and every part of me at that time in my life wanted to just like curl up and die. Like I wanted to lock myself in a closet and never come out until somebody gave me a big hug and said everything was going to be okay. And but I also made a promise to hundreds of clients that I was going to see them through to retirement. I made a promise to my partner that I was going to build a business, and she counted on me for her livelihood. I had an assistant that counted on me for her life, and it was like, well, it's not an option to just quit. I have people to support, and I have people that count on me. And so, but I also knew that I didn't have all the answers. And so I did like the best, worst idea ever. I invested a ton of money in a business coach when I didn't have, I didn't think I could take a financial risk, but I did, because I'm like, well, if I'm going to take a risk, it's going to be on me, because I'm the only one that can control it. And so, so that's what I did. And going through that process, like she, really helped me in terms of, hey, you know what, like maybe you should think about the clients that you like enjoy working with most. Where can you make the biggest impact? And so it was that catalyst that forced us to narrow the scope of our business, really focus on what we were working on, who we were working with, and started that journey. And so when Sarah and I really started doing that and getting clear about what we were talking about, but more importantly, like why we did what we did, our business really started to grow quite a bit. I got a lot more vulnerable, a lot more transparent, and started to I stopped caring about what everybody else thought. I think I just dropped every single guard at the time, and I was like, well, I have nothing to lose. If this doesn't work, like, then what am I going to do? And so, I think that, that moment in time was the worst time of my life, but it was the first and best catalyst really for the business that we've built now, which, is kind of ironic. And so, but in doing that, we learned how to truly speak our truth. I started being more authentic, for so long. And you said it before, like people pleaser. Like I was always trying to be the version of me that everybody else wanted to see, versus just showing up as me. Like, why do I care so much about how everybody thinks of me? Because at the end of the day, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be someone that doesn't like me. And so why not just show up as me? And then, if people like me and want to work with me, great. If they don't, that's okay too. And accepting the fact that there was people that wouldn't want to work with me was oh my God, terrifying, and then we decided to chop off 50% of the population. We're just working with women. So it's that was even scarier, but it's no, screw it. Women need a ton of help, and I can help them, and I can relate to them. And no one was talking to them. You look at the financial services industry, and it's a bunch of old white men. Who can relate to that? At least I knew I couldn't. And for me, it was even being in the industry, they intimidated me and they talked down to me, let alone not being in the industry. And so, we completely rebranded from a place of pure authenticity. It was mission driven, and it was so imperfect. It was just real, and I didn't realize that that's what people wanted to hear. Right. And so it really was it was really fun. We had so much fun building it, and the conversations we were having, and the lives that we were truly changing. And it was the fuel for me that helped get me through the toughest time of my life. I had a place to go and show up, and it's what held me together. And so, yeah, so that's where, where we are today, how we got here. So
it's amazing, and I love the way you've narrowed down to your avatar and, your client base. And, because I'd imagine, 100 or a couple of hundred clients is sufficient for most, I would imagine, but, which is what, 0.000 X% of the population.
Right.
But yet we all try and appeal to everyone. As you say, you
Right.
wipe out half the population, that there goes the guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But actually still, you could probably wipe out 99.9% of the 50% that's left, and you're still, outside of your own market as such, so that takes a lot of focus to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely, and it took time too. I think it, was scary, but it was exciting. And I shifted my perspective too, from the scarcity mindset to abundance, and thinking what, there are millions of people out there, and not everybody's going to be for me, but there's plenty of people out there who do fit into that niche, and that we can help. And so who cares about the competition? I started this belief that there is no competition, because it's our unique value proposition is Sarah and I, and how we care, how we listen, the service that we provide. And locally there's actually nobody doing what we're doing anyways, but the real reason why we don't have competition is nobody else is us. like nobody else is going to care like we care, have the conversations like, like we have. They might have something similar, but it's not that. And so, I went in with this belief that like, we're it, there isn't competition. And if somebody goes to another advisor, all that means is they weren't a good fit for us, and so that really kind of eliminated so many fears too. And I think the things that you try to mold yourself or pigeon yourself into because you're worried about what the other guys are doing. And like, I literally never care or think about what the other guys are doing. It's like, what is good for our business and our company, and how can we serve our clients best? Like, that is the first question I ask, is like, how can we serve our clients best, and what do they need from us? And that's all that matters. Like, and so it's really been so helpful in terms of our growth, but then in the impact that we're making with the people who we do work with.
That's amazing, to get out there and to find that. So tell me, Avatar, who is your perfect client?
We are typically working with women who are very ambitious, goal-oriented, career-focused, or a business owner. And most of our clients are between 30 and 50. So we do have a number of 20-somethings that are just super mature for their age and really ambitious, that of course, we love working with them, and they're actually super fun, because it's like, hey, we've been there, done that, don't do that. Or, what we can do. But and we've got some older women too, who are like 10 years younger at heart, or whatever. But most of our clients are within that 20 to 50, or I'm sorry, 30 to 50 age gap, that are, they're value driven. They want to make an impact in the world, and whatever that may be in their wheelhouse. And they're just ambitious. Like, they value getting advice so that they can get further ahead, and I think that is a very to some degree, like, specific person. And it's many women, but not all women have that type of drive to even care to ask the question sometimes. And so, there's unfortunately so many women that I wish I could convert that tell themselves every single day, I'm fine, or it's good enough. And those are really the women that I wish I could like rein in and say, like, that's such a toxic phrase. And, or they just assume that everything's okay, taken care of by their husband. And there's always going to be that, which is totally, it's okay. It's fine. If it's fine for them, but we're really looking for the women who are wanting to own their future, and we're going to give them all the tools they need to get there.
You wrote a very subtly titled book as well to help promote that, right?
We sure did. Yeah. Money Bitch. So,
I love it. It's like, say it like it is.
Yeah. For smart women who want to own their financial future. And it's a no BS guide. And the title literally has no meaning other than the fact that we wanted it to catch attention, because money is thought of as overwhelming, intimidating, boring. Financial planning, people don't know what it is or why they need to do it now. And so we wanted a way to like grab attention, rein you in, and maybe pick it up and read it, because the fact of the matter is financial planning is important for everyone. It doesn't matter how old you are, what stage of life you're in, because all financial planning is like helping you create that roadmap to get what you want, to live your best life without saying like, shit, I wish I would have known that, or I wish I would have done that. And so the book takes you through all the different important topics of financial planning, but we do it through storytelling. So it's through stories of our own, of experiences that we've had. And hopefully our goal, our mission of the book was to have women read it and be able to relate to it, be able to say, oh, me too, or it's not just me, or I'm not alone, and be able to have parts of it resonate, but be powerful enough at the same time to allow them to take action, like take action on some of the stuff that you either didn't know what you didn't know and you didn't realize was so important, or you knew all along you needed to do, but you didn't know who to ask for help, or why it was important to act now. And so, our hope with the book was really to like get this information out there in a fun way, in a way that women can relate to, and then more importantly, start to take action on, because, knowledge is only powerful when you start to use it. and so that's really, we wanted to reach more people at that capacity.
So you are informing, you are empowering, these are the key things I'm hearing here with this book. So
Correct.
anyone gets
Yep.
it into their midst, then they can, really that's going to give them the evidence and the advice they need to be able to do it for
Correct.
themselves and give them a kick up the backside while you're at it.
Yep. Yeah. And we definitely have like tools in there that people can use right away. It's not just fluff. It's useful tools, it's stories, and then action provoking.
Oh, I love it. Love it. So out of interest, because you started to use some terms there, and in the personal development field and depending on
Yeah.
who your sort of mentors are.
Yeah.
You talked about abundance, you talked about, visualization. There's a lot of stuff there. Do you practice in terms of your personal development side? And you mentioned a mentor 4 years ago as well, but do you study anyone or who's your go-to?
It's I don't have a specific go-to, but I read a lot. And by read, I mean listen. Let's be honest. So but I listen to usually like 1 to 2 books a month plus podcasts. And so for me, it's always a mix of business books, self-help books, and anything that I can soak up that is going to be for self-improvement. And if I'm reading a book for pleasure, it's usually always a biography, autobiography, or something about someone's story too, because I draw so much energy from that. And so for me, that's been the most impactful. And I actually made it a practice of mine to start listening to something positive, educational, motivational, or whatever it may be, ever since the accident. I started doing it in the morning, and now I every single day, like no matter what, I either, like, it's a non-negotiable for me, whether I listen in the morning, at night, take a walk, whatever, like I'm always listening to a fragment of something. And I've done it every single day since literally, I think it was week 2 I started of the accident, because I was like, I need to do something for my headspace to keep me out of that like swamp, like the black hole. And so, but it's helped in such a tremendous way. It's been so profound and impactful to allow your brain to steal energy from other people out there who have either gone through similar things that you've gone through, or have a lot to share with the world, and that's a really great gift. And so for me to be able to experience that every day and draw it in, it's been life-changing, truly, in terms of how I see things, deal with things, and draw strength from. And then I reteach it, as much as I can, and as many lives as I can touch or inspire, empower. And even if it is just motivation, like, so much of what I talk about isn't just money, like it's about life, and how to get through the tough times, because at the end of the day, like, it's all related, and so much of our mindset and how we feel, think, and live, and how well we are from a mental capacity, it always affects your money anyways. And so it's like completely interrelated. So I'm constantly talking about mindset and behaviors and habits, in addition to money and financial planning.
I love it there. There's so much going on there for you, and so much power, amongst with your clients. Do you podcast? Do you blog? Do you on top of this?
No, it's a goal, and we want to, but we don't. So,
Yet.
yes, exactly. We've got big goals. We have to, we want to do an audio book. So we do want to record our, Money Bitch, and have an audio version. And we do want to start a podcast. We just haven't got it on the calendar yet. But it is a goal. It's out there. We will do it, for sure. It's just a matter of when.
You mentioned the accident was 4 years ago. Am I right? Have I got the
Correct.
timeline correct?
Yep.
That's obviously been, it's obviously quite an extreme event for you.
Right.
And I'm what I'm sort of picking up is, obviously, you talk about lifetime sort of financial planning and wealth planning and stuff, and it's almost, it sounds like it was almost a bit of an epiphany for you, that event, and what's happened since. Is that a fair summary?
I think, well, I mean, I've always done the financial planning and all of that, but I think, what what the event did make me realize is that life is short. So, I still don't know even how, like, I'm alive. Right. And so it made me realize, like, shit, like I need to show up every single day and just be true to me and touch as many people as I can touch. Right. First of all, and, it made me not dwell on the small things or get upset by the small things or not worry about who likes me and who doesn't. Like, look, I have my people and there's people that don't like me, and that's cool. And I'm always very, very cautious about, like, the people that I do have relationships with and making sure that I make time for them. And then talking about the importance of planning. And I definitely have a lot more passion behind what I do now, and the importance and significance of it, because people don't realize, I think we assume everything's fine until it's not, right? And so, now I might push a little bit harder. I might bring more emotion into the conversations, because people need to understand the extreme importance of having a plan, of having the proper insurances, because it's stuff that we hate talking about. We don't ever want to talk about the person we love most dying or being disabled, but the last thing you want to do when the person you love most is in the hospital is worry about money. It just adds to the burden. And so if you don't have adequate insurance in place, or your finances in order, like, that is going to add to that layer of stress. And then what if you're making decisions based on money instead of based on what's in their best interest? And so for me, it was like, holy crap, like, they don't teach you in the textbook about, like, the emotional part that goes with it. Or even when it comes to disability insurance, when like school or all the courses I took didn't teach me. They taught me about disability insurance for, like, a person, but they never talked about the effect of a spouse. Right. Like, oh, cool, Chris has insurance coverage, but really what happened was we would have been fine if he had disability or not, but I didn't know how much I'd have to take off work caring for him. So, like, my income was affected. And, like, people just you don't think of that, because why would you? It's not like a normal thought pattern or what have you. And so now it's just like, for me, it's like, I try to educate as much as I can in what if scenarios, and just making sure that people are prepared, because, we didn't have everything prepared. We didn't. Like, it was a huge argument for us, because my husband, love him to death, but, like, he hates having a plan. He hates talking about the future. We're like opposites in that regard, right? And I love having a plan. And every time I was like, hey, Chris, like, let's get our wills done. Let's get our power of attorney done. He was like, I'm not dying. I'm not going anywhere. We'll talk about this later, and well, long story short, right? And so I didn't have a power of attorney for him or a healthcare proxy, and I had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars getting legal guardianship when I could have spent a couple $100 on a power of attorney. And so, just because I didn't have the tough conversation, I didn't feel like starting an argument. So now I talk about that all the time with couples. It's like, have the uncomfortable conversation, because you're really going to be sorry if something happens and you avoided that. And so it's definitely now, like, just a normal part. And I'm not afraid to have the conversation. I'm not afraid to push the envelope. I'm not afraid to make people uncomfortable. And before I was, before I definitely was. And now I'm just not, because I know the impact that it can have, and to think that I didn't have an uncomfortable conversation because it was uncomfortable but could have made a difference is, like, unbearable to me.
Mm. What? Why are those conversations uncomfortable? Do you know?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I think they're uncomfortable because you never know how a reaction is going to be, right? There's always, as an advisor too, there's that fine line between feeling like you're educating, or you don't, for me anyways, I don't want to be perceived as if I'm just trying to push a sale or, like, use a scare tactic, and so it's like, how can I educate with facts and stories and not sound like I'm just trying to sell a product, because that's not what it's all about. But there's that. And then too, it's like the emotional part in it, there's been so many meetings where I've had these conversations and, like, clients cry, and it's like, wow, like, I don't want to be the person that causes that kind of emotion, but how powerful is it too, at the same point. And people never want to think about or do things about the stuff that they hope never happens, right? It's that classic, like, I'm just going to bury my head in the sand because, if I never think about it, it's never going to happen, right? Like that whole thought process behind it. And so that's why it's so uncomfortable. And then it's uncomfortable too, because I think when you're married, you're afraid of what your spouse's response is going to be. Right. And so a good example of this is like, well, I want more life insurance because I'm afraid that, if something happens to my husband, I wouldn't want to go back to work. And what if my husband says he doesn't care about paying for more life insurance and I'm going to be just fine? Like, what if they say they don't care? And then, does that mean they don't love me? And I mean, there's just so much emotion that can truly get snowballed into that. And it's like a real thing that, like, these stories we tell ourselves in our head, and we don't talk about it too, because we're afraid of what the reaction is going to be. Even for me, like when, my husband and I started dating and bought a house together, I was like, hey, Chris, we need insurance. For me to say that to him took months, because I was so uncomfortable about actually saying and talking about the whole, quote unquote insurance word, because, I was like, what if he thinks I'm just selling him something? And like, oh my God, is this man gonna be my husband? Like, for real? And so, but I was uncomfortable because what if he thought I was just like in it for the money, or I was gonna like kill him? Like, you like literally make up these crazy stories in your head. And so, but finally, of course, I was like, you need life insurance. This is not negotiable. Like, we have, debt now and whatever. And of course he was like, okay, like no arguments whatsoever, until he saw the premium, and then he was like, why do we need this? This is stupid. And so, and every single year when he pays our insurance premiums, I have to have the same conversation of why we need it, because every year he thinks it's stupid, and every year I hate paying for it. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, shoot, I rather pay for it than the alternative. So it's just one of those things that we do. And it's never a comfortable conversation ever, right?
Well, insurance is expensive until you need it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever, right?
Yeah.
And you hope to never need it, and that's I think what's difficult is like, hey, I'm paying for something that I don't ever want to use. So
yeah, it's sort of like a reverse sale. It's like, yeah,
totally. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
like if you see me
exactly.
for anything other than renewing your premiums, we've got a problem.
Right.
So, what I mean, I suppose you mentioned there about taking on a mentor there as well, and that you're saying that was about 4 years ago, and again there sort of seemed to be quite a lot happen at that time in your life.
Mm-hmm.
What did you look for in a mentor, and then I suppose in reverse, what do you seek to give as a mentor?
Well, the 4 years ago, it was actually a business coach that I hired. And the reason I hired her was I read her book. And I think it came across on my like Facebook feed as like an advertisement, and the title was Make More Money, Help More People. And I was like, it sounds like me. And I read it, and then, I ended up reaching out to her, and she just resonated with me, like everything she said. And so is how it came about. And it was one of the most terrifying like decisions I ever made, because she was like a super like high price tag. And and I had a partner too, like Sarah totally 1000% supported me. She's like, we're in this together, let's do it, and we're gonna make it happen. And so that no doubt helped. The mentor that I had, I was in also, before I was in the American Business Women's Association. And so there were some women on that board who were just helpful in terms of guiding me through conversations, through leadership, through again, hard lessons, right? When you're in a women's organization, you learn a lot, even in like communication, right? Effective communication. And so that organization was helpful for me. Now I'm in NABO, the National Association of Women Business Owners, and so I am more of a mentor on that capacity, and really just I feel like it's my my duty to like give back. And if any woman in the organization comes up to me and says, hey, can you help me with this? Or can we grab coffee? Or can I pick your brain? Like, no matter how busy my schedule is, I'm always going to make time for that, because I truly believe, like, the only way to change the story for women in business is to give back and to support other women in business, and I want to be a part of the change. I don't want to be part of the problem. And so for me, it's any woman, like if you are ambitious, like, and driven, and you know what you want, but you just need like a little help, like along the way, or support or guidance or whatever, like I am always going to give you my time, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But I can spare 20 minutes for anybody if you've got like ambition, and it's just, for me, it's like, how could I not, how could I not? Yeah.
What about legacy? Do you go there at all, or?
Yeah, sort of. I still am kind of big picture at this point.
Yeah.
I don't have kids. And it's not in my future. But I am on the board for the Girl Scouts organization of Western New York, and I really do believe quite a bit in educating young girls about being leaders and having confidence and giving them the tools that they need in life in general, like to just deal with how hard it is out there. And so I'm toying around with what we want to do. My husband and I, we both believe in giving quite a bit of our estate to nonprofit organizations, be it one of them will be the hospital that saved his life, in that trauma unit. But then also, we're kind of in discussions around like what do we want the other part to be? Is it giving to the Girl Scouts or organization that is supporting and empowering women? And we're not exactly sure yet exactly of the details, but we're always talking about how we want to leave a legacy and who we're going to help impact. And he very much stands behind me on pretty much everything. Like, he's a huge feminist, and he's awesome, and probably because he had a very strong mother. But so it's just we're in just in the discussion phase, and I know I want to do something. I know I want to make an impact, but I'm not exactly sure what that looks like just yet. Yeah.
Maybe a rude question. Can I ask what age you are?
I will be 34 in August.
Because I couldn't quite do the math, but yeah, no, I mean, and that's,
Yeah.
I think it's good, because I think a lot of people have had this bit of a question lately about, legacy and ego,
Yeah.
and some people go, I want to sponsor the building and have my name up there. And you're like, okay, is that for you or for everyone else?
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's
I could care
interesting.
less about that. Yeah.
Some people want to go, is like, yeah, as long as you stick my name at the top, I don't mind. Is kind of going, why is this legacy? And
Yeah.
ego plays sometimes can be interesting.
Yeah.
How's your own ego? How's that go for you?
Well, I think for me, it's ego, or confidence, I suppose. Like, it's something that I've been working on to become more self-confident and comfortable in my own skin and okay with who I am. It's something that I'm constantly working on improving, because it's a big thing that I've struggled with over the years, and why I haven't I didn't necessarily get it as ahead as quickly as I probably could have, because I never thought I was good enough or capable of or worthy. And so for me, that's something that I've been aware of and working on, and so now it's just, I think I've done a pretty good job of like being self-confident, but like humble at the same time. But I still question myself all the time. And I definitely do have a sense of pride as well, in terms of I now feel like I to some degree need to continue to do good things in the eye of the public, because it's like an expectation, and so like I want to make sure that I'm always showing up on social media as a positive light, or giving value, or being supportive, and so now I feel like I can't I don't ever want to show up and not A, be authentic, but then B, not provide some kind of value or something that, something that's positive. And so for me, it's just like, now I have to be like, it's like kind of work, and always thinking about that, but being intentional and just making sure that, I guess I'm not, I don't know, like not slowing down or becoming complacent, right?
Because I mean, you mentioned that a while back, and I suppose, I'm curious about inner language. Your inner dialogue. And
Hmm.
as entrepreneurs, I think some people very much have clean language, and other people are quite hard on themselves. I mean, where does that sit for you?
Mm, I have always been very hard on myself and self-critical. I've gotten better, but I overanalyze everything. So, and again, trying to improve, but like, if I have a conversation with someone and I'm not sure it went well, or a meeting, like I will literally run it over in my head a bazillion times to like say, and like poor Sarah, cause she like, I will beat it with a dead horse, literally, with her, and say like, I should have said this, or I could have done this, or do you think I should send a follow-up? Like constantly like that reel in my head, just going over and over again. Again, I've tried to get better with that, but it's always like, I think my constant need or want to be liked and do the right thing. And what if I could have said something better, more impactful, or I really screwed that up. And, it's kind of like just giving yourself grace, like, holy cow, Nicholle, like, you can't be perfect, and there's plenty of things that you're not going to say right, and you move on, and that whole move on part for me is really hard.
Well, I love it. I appreciate your frankness on that, because I
Mm-hmm.
know it's can be quite exposing, and some people are very open.
Yeah.
And you said, tell me some of the give us an idea of some of the best advice you ever got.
The best advice that I ever got is that failing is okay, and it's just a lesson. Because for so long I was absolutely terrified of failing, and I would do anything in my power to not fail, but it's inevitable, like everybody fails. And so as soon as I got comfortable with failing, I got more comfortable with doing uncomfortable things, and it really helped me grow quite a bit and being more comfortable with who I am and what I do. To accept failure is nothing more than a lesson, and it really helped with my mindset, like in such a tremendous way. And then the other thing that someone told me, she was actually in one of the ABWA with me, she's a life coach, and I was going through like this horrible time of just like being spread too thin, and she's like, Nicholle, no is a word. And now that's actually helped me so much in my life, that you're not a bitch for saying no is literally it is the second chapter of our book. Because I think as women, we are so inclined to always say yes to everything because we want to make everybody happy, and we forget that no is a word. And there was a time in my life where I said yes to everything, and I was doing it all, or trying to do, because I was like so inclined to just keep adding on to my plate. I would say yes to something, and then somebody else would come up to me and say, hey, can you do this? And I would say yes to that. And then, yeah, and like, it didn't even matter that I didn't have hours left in my day. Like, I was going to say yes to you because I wanted to make you happy and prove to the world that I could do it all. And that was the most ridiculous expectation that I think I ever had. And it really led to a lot of my burnout. And now I'm very careful with my time and my boundaries and what I say yes to. And realizing too, I think, we forget that when we say yes, we're giving up the opportunity for something else. And, what's that opportunity cost? Is it really worth it? And if you say no, is that other person really going to care? Right? It's that self-talk story again that we say in our heads, and we make up these crazy stories that are never true. And most people could care less if you say no, right? Like, they move on. It's just being comfortable with that.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, there's some great advice in there for a lot of people. I think it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter your
Right.
gender or position or whatever. Um, is there a mantra you live to?
Yes. You get to, you don't have to.
Can you explain?
No, no, I'm just kidding. So I mean, truly, like, you get to do things. You don't have to do things. And I say
Mm.
it over and over, and it's such a huge mantra to me, because if you think about the last time you complained about something, think about what that was and how ridiculous it may have been. And so it could have been, I have to get up early for a meeting. Like, no, you get to get up early for a meeting because you have a job, and that's a tremendous gift. And I think if you look at it, life in general at that perspective, and oh, I have to work out today. Like, no, you get to work out today because you have air in your lungs, and you have two legs that work, and you're strong. And like, everything that we get to do is a choice, and it's very much a privilege. And there are people on this earth dying every single day, wishing and daydreaming for the problems that we perceive that we have. And so it's really, since I started thinking that way and changing my perspective on life, it's really helped, because everything we do is a choice. And if we're, and some of those choices are hard, and is it fun all the time? No. Are things like never, like, yes, I do things that I don't love doing, but at the end of the day, I'm choosing to do them because I know I have to get me to where I ultimately want to be. And sometimes, I think we're in this culture right now of like, oh, self-love, and it's okay to just like not do anything and be easy on yourself. And I think people are missing the point with a lot of that whole self-love stuff, is like, you have to love yourself enough to push yourself hard to do the things to get what you want. And that's not an easy path. And sometimes we like, I go easy on ourselves because we've come to this like soft point, but then we wonder why we don't have what we want, or we wonder why we're not happy, or we wonder why we're constantly having regrets or fears, or wondering why we're not doing what we dream about every single day. And it's because we're not pushing ourselves hard enough, or we're complaining about things that we should just suck up and do, because if we can get through the hard stuff, we can do anything. And I think that more people could use some tough love, but more importantly, like, support and accountability through the hard things, versus the just like, it's okay, everybody wins. I think we've become kind of like this culture of like mediocre. And um and it's sad. Like, we need to remember that good things do take hard work, and we can make the choice to see to it, and make it happen. And we have 1000% control over our life. Life is not what happens to us, it's what happens for us, and it's what we choose to do with it, and it's how we react to the bad things. You can take a bad experience and say, this is horrible, how could it happen to me? Or you can, we can look at the bad things and say, like, this really sucks. Like, yes, it's hard, but how can I overcome it? How can I react to it to be in a place where the beat march is on, and we have to continue on in a way that serves us and then serves the people around us.
No, I love it. I mean, it is a great mantra to follow. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Heroes or inspirational people, who stands out in your life?
My husband, um, he's just like, he's been such a, like, he's made such a profound impact on my life, from when we first met to how much he's helped me professionally through my career, and with the confidence he's given me. Like, he is such a, like, no BS person, no excuses, like, don't complain to me, do the work kind of person. And it's helped me, because he's really, pushed me to be uncomfortable. Like, if I wanted to give up, he didn't give me that option. And then when he was in the accident, like, every single doctor in that hospital said he was either, if he was going to survive, he would never walk again, he would never be the same again, he would never lift his arms over his head. And like, that man did not take no for an answer. Like, he is the most like strong willed person ever, and he's doing all the things now. And he essentially said, like, F you to every doctor and like every therapist. And he got up, and no pain pills, and like did the exercises, the therapies. Like, we put him in extra therapy, and like, he worked out 3 times a day. He didn't take no for any, like, and his drive and strength and like will to just like be him with ease is, like, to me, um like the biggest inspiration. And he's not a celebrity, he um doesn't even have like a goal to do anything different than what he's doing now. Like, I mean, he is an ordinary guy, but like the most amazing person. And he's also the kind of person that sees the good in everybody, and will help anybody that asks. And for me, it's like, that's really admirable, because I'm so like, I'm a little jaded. I don't always like see the good in people immediately, or, I might not be as like willing to help somebody if it's an inconvenience to me, where Chris is like, yeah, let's do it, and so for sure him, I know I went on a little bit of tangent about that, but it's the truth. And I've never really been someone to be star crazy or look to anyone famous. I've kind of struggled with finding like one person that like I followed for all the things. I've kind of been like spread thin among like getting inspired about many people. But there's not one single person I think that I'm like, yeah, this, really made an impact, and I follow her or him all the time for all the things. I try not to do that, because I find myself in like this comparison game, and then it gives me anxiety thinking like I'm not getting far ahead enough or good enough. And so I like stay in my lane. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's just, ordinary people that I'm surrounded with that help me, are really what I pull like that inspiration from.
I love it. Yeah, it's to have that in your life, and someone as strong as that, it's a real,
Mhm.
it's a massive bonus. I'm
Yeah.
just curious, you're coming up to statistically sort of a midpoint in your life.
Oh,
What's depending on what age
I
you want to live
know.
to, but
Yeah.
I suppose it's a question, what do you see ahead of yourself? Is it, more the same, or is it different, or, what floats for you?
Well, yeah, I think more of the same, in terms of like, I will never do anything different than what I'm doing now. I'm in love with it just as much now as I was ever. But I think I want to do more of it. I want to definitely grow the business and continue to help more people. And so we're implementing new group coaching programs, and so that we can have a little bit more scalability in terms of impacting more people. And so that's really our next phase, is implementing a lot of these group programs and online courses and things like that. So that's really where I see like the next phase going. And so that for us is really where I'd like to be. And then maybe adding, a couple more people to our team in terms of continuing the continuity with the level of service that we're giving. But, you know, pretty simple. Like, I just want to keep doing what we're doing, but doing it better and helping more people. So um, that's it,
Mm.
really.
No, it's great, and it's great to sort of, would you say you found your passion, and are you where you're supposed to be?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool, love it. That's definiteness. I love that. So tell me, and I'm circling back to something you said, a couple of questions ago there, and say, would you say that you love yourself, or and you like yourself?
I love myself, and I like who I've become, but I'm also aware that I'm like a work in progress. So,
Hey, aren't we
um,
all?
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
journey.
So, yeah, exactly. I'm still very much a work in progress, but I'm comfortable in my own skin, which is actually monumental for me, because that wasn't always so.
Mm.
And so for me to say that is pretty good, because I didn't always have the confidence for, to even say something like that, but still working.
I mean, it is very telling when people,
Mhm.
because I mean, I've always found it amazing the number of people that can't answer that question,
Right.
and I think all of us sort of say, well, we're on a journey, and we're not at the top of that tree yet, but we are significantly further up the tree than some,
Hmm.
and that's not to take away. So the amount that you can give back is phenomenal, and it's great.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that I'm the top of my ladder. It's like, no, you're going to be climbing your entire life. We all are,
Right.
so it's
Right.
amazing. Tell me this, guilty pleasure.
Um, Eating ice cream and chocolate. Like that's it, really my guiltiest pleasure, I think. We love ice cream in our household. Like the Overkamps will always have a sundae before bed. Um, I think I'm maybe a little bit boring. That's
No,
the guilty
that's great.
pleasure though. That's like the worst habit that Chris and I probably have.
Tell us about the ice cream. Give us the brand. What are we doing? What goes with it?
Well, for like we're both also like vanilla and chocolate people, which is really funny. Like it's just Chris will have like a huge like half a can of whipped cream, and I will go through like a jar of peanut butter a week. So for me it's like the ice cream and the peanut butter. Like I'll have the ice cream, the peanut butter, and then I'll always go back to like more scoops of peanut butter. It's like beyond me how both of us aren't 400 pounds, but it's the it makes us so happy.
I love it. I thought you were going to say boats, but I'm delighted now. You said it's like
Yeah,
ice
I know.
cream.
Well, I mean, I guess like for
Yeah.
like I know like we both know that like the ice cream
Mm,
isn't the healthiest thing, but like for us, like
yeah.
boating is just like part of our life. So we love being out there, and still.
No, that's great. It's great. This was all it's
Yeah,
all about.
yeah.
So going, I mean, circling back, I suppose, what would you describe as your fire in the belly then?
Still like it my fire in the belly is literally knowing that every single day I'm waking up and I'm helping women. I am helping women, whether it is being more confident in the money choices that they're making, if it's growing and building their business, and showing them how they can achieve something when they thought it wasn't possible. Like every single day, like I'm doing a different variation of the same thing, and it is 1000% what lights me up, what pulls me out of bed, what makes me excited to get up at 5 a.m., what makes me stay up late, what makes me want to come home from vacation early is that very thing, is like knowing that I am helping empower other women.
That is powerful, and it says a lot, really. So tell me this, how can people reach out to you? Where do we go to, and tell us, about the book as well. How can we get a hold of it?
Sure. So the book Money Bitch is on Amazon. So there is just go to Amazon and search Money Bitch, and our book will come right up. We are on Instagram, and our handle is Pow Her House Money. So that's POWHER House Money. And on our Instagram profile actually is a link to all of our different websites. So powherhousemoney.com. WilcoxFinancialGroup.com is our other website for financial planning. But I'm also on Facebook, so feel free to search Nicholle Overkamp, spelled Nicholle. Right?
Totally, I love it. Just in case anyone,
Yeah, exactly.
it's great. Yeah, so all the different pronunciation. Where does your name come from, actually? Because it's slightly unusual spelling.
I believe it's French Canadian. My dad wanted to spell it that way, so he like fought my mom tooth and nail on it. And so and it was so funny because as a kid, like you always want like the little ornaments or the things that like have your name on it, and my name was literally never anywhere ever spelled the correct way. So I didn't have any of those little like keepsakes, if you will, with my name on it. And everybody thinks it's Michelle because it's the Nicholle. And so if it's written sloppily, I'm called Michelle all the time. So
Like, just answer to loads of things like, yeah, okay.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
just come in the money, bitch. It's like, that's cool. So
Yeah.
Nicholle, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yep.
Thank you so much for sharing, and listen, it's been to hear your journey and your drive and your passion. So again, I thank you for coming on. I'm really looking forward to know what's coming up. So thank you again.
Great. Thanks, Pete. My pleasure.